state of fighting games going into 2025 seems to be in one of the most peculiar states that you can remember. When you look at any of the main games right now, whether it's Street Fighter 6, whether it's Tekken 8, whether it's Guilty Gear Strive, whether it's Dragon Ball Fighters, it seems like everybody has negative things to say about it. And it's getting to a point to where it's like, it's really hard almost to go online and see anybody talking about anything positive as far as like what's going on in the FGC. Now, you do have some things that are going on right now, a few things that are positive. For example, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and Beyond has come out, and that is doing fantastic. Just had a prize pool of over $7,000, all crowdfunded. Also, the Marvel Collection came out, so it seems like MVC is at a state to where it's doing fantastic and everybody's excited, anticipating for the next one to come out. And also you have anticipated games in the future, which we'll talk about later. Fate of Fury, City of the Wolves, and the new Virtua Fighter 6. But when it comes to the games that are out right now, it's polarizing to say the least. When you have people going back to older versions of a current game or just going back to an older game in general, it seems like it's a pretty tough and crazy time in the FGC. And we're going to go through some of the games that are out right now and talk about the state of where they're at right now, possibly how it's going to look going forward into the future, and some games that we can look at going forward into the future. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these games. So first we have Street Fighter 6. Now Street Fighter 6, as far as like the big three of the fighting games, seems like is in the best position. And when I say big three, we're talking about Street Fighter, Tekken, and Mortal Kombat. It seems like it's at the best position, but it still has some of its own issues, where you have some people who say they really just don't like what the game is and how it is played in the meta of it. When you talk about the drive gauge, drive mechanics, and things of that nature, a lot of people feel like it's just totally unfair, it's unbalanced, it's broken. And people like Menor RD has actually come out and said he thinks Street Fighter 6 is just a game that is very random, that you really can't, from tournament to tournament, decide who is possibly going to win. Anybody could beat almost anybody. It's really not like older Street Fighter games where he would say like the last season of Street Fighter 5 or Street Fighter 4 to where the best player would win all the time. No, that's not the case. It's so many 50-50, so many guessing, so many things like doing or overhead, blocking or overhead, and somebody still being plus. The game has so much stuff to it for the state that it is right now that people really don't like it. So much so that people have in recent times talked about going back to Street Fighter 5 and playing Street Fighter 5 to where the FGC is reminiscing on social media, putting up old Street Fighter clips, wondering if they're going to reinstall the game. But also another issue with Street Fighter 6 is lack of content. It seems like they're mostly just focused on Battle Hub when it comes to costumes and things of that nature to customize the characters that you're playing with, and just a lack of people having characters that they really want to play with, which is understandable. I mean, it's the early seasons of the game, so you're probably not going to have like the character that you want in the game already. And really, with the state that Street Fighter 6 is in, it seems like Capcom is fine with it. When you talk about the patches and the things that have happened lately, when it comes to throw loops, they haven't really changed it much. It seems like they even buffed the throw loops. And then on top of that, when it comes to the drive gauge, drive mechanics, it seems like they haven't touched that much, which is basically saying that they're happy with the way that things are. Basically what Street Fighter 6 is right now, you can kind of expect it to stay the same with just little tweaks in there, the buffs and nerfs of characters, and they're just going to go on and move forward. So it's kind of going to be a preference game. Do you like the game? Do you not like the game? Is this something that you can stick with for the future? If not, it might just have to be a game that you drop. Or if you're a pro player and you're trying to do this for a living, it might just be one of them things like, hey, I might not like the game, but you know, this is how I make my living. I'm a Street Fighter player. We're just going to move forward. So that's kind of like the state of Street Fighter 6 right now. It's not as bad as the other ones, but that is what it is. Then we have Tekken 8. Now it seems like Tekken 8 kind of came out of the gate weird, with a lot of people like Arsenal and Ash, for example, coming out and talking about from the jump how he didn't like Tekken 8 and how it was a hard time for him getting in before he went on ahead and eventually won Evo that year. But he still talks about to this day how Tekken 7 is a better game and how he wished things were back the way it was with Tekken. It's understandable because for so long Tekken was known as a game to where you have legacy skill. The things that you learned from the previous game could carry over. But we're in times now where fighting games are basically kind of in a revolution. They're changing. They're going to more and more offensive heavy, super offensive focus, not a lot of defensive options type game. So what we've known fighting games to be, they're kind of changing, especially for a game like Tekken. Now, aside from the issues that they've had with the gameplay, they've had some issues just out of the gate with the game as far as like DLC. The first season of Tekken 8, a lot of people think was lackluster because basically they got characters that they feel like should have been in the base roster. Lydia was a character that was already in the final season of Tekken 7 that was DLC, and then you got her as DLC again for the first season of Tekken 8. Was weird. Eddie Goro was first season of Tekken 8, which people thought he should have been in the base roster, which was weird. Heihachi, even though he came out with a bang, a lot of people was confused and saying, you told us this man was dead for forever. If he wasn't going to be dead, you should have just put him back in the base game. And Clive has coming out, which a lot of people are super excited about. But at the same time, a lot of people felt like it fell flat because, one, not only did we not get the character that a lot of people wanted, which was Tifa, but at the same time, you took a character from the same universe of the character that we wanted. So it's like, it's a double whammy of not only did we get the character we want, but you went into that IP and could have got it, but you got another one. And then let's not forget with Heihachi, when he came out, they was trying to give the DLC stage separate, which a lot of people thought was greedy, which more so speaks towards Bandai Namco's side of things, not so much Tekken Project. But overall, it seems like Tekken 8 has gotten like on bad footing for a lot of people, where you seeing people now basically saying that they're just tired of Tekken 8 and want to go back to Tekken 7. So we're seeing this pattern with games where people are just wanting to go back to the old version of games. They don't like the current state of games, which even carry on into one of the other big games that's in the FGC top 4. Some people might even say top 3 in this current state. Guilty Gear Strive. You have people out right now, including Pro Leffen, who is basically saying that Guilty Gear Strive at this state, at this patch, he doesn't like. It isn't playable. And a lot of people agree, so much to the point that the producer of Guilty Gear Strive actually came out and apologized for the recent patch of the game and how it didn't meet players' expectations. But then even the patch that came out to fix the patch that they didn't like came out on December 23rd, and people are still saying that it was terrible. A lot of people were complaining that Potemkin had got nerfed very badly, and then people are just saying this character is too good, this character is too bad. Just a lot of chaos right now, seeming like people just don't like the current state of the game, which is typical. This is more so seeming like with Guilty Gear Strive is just your typical, hey, we just don't like the state of the game right now, this is a bad patch, whatever. It's not as serious as like Street Fighter 6 or Tekken, but still it seems like it's at a down slump. So yet another game in the FGC that is at a down slump. Then you have Mortal Kombat 1, which at this point we talked about Mortal Kombat so harshly, and not just like we here at TVFGC, but just the community and all that. It really just doesn't feel good to just even go over again what's going on with MK1. If you've been in the scene, if you're just staying close to the FGC, got your hands on the pulse in any type of way, you basically know that Mortal Kombat 1 is in a position right now where everybody is just hating it. It seems like from all sides, from its release, from the things that it has tried to do after release, from the characters that have come in DLC, from them not fixing stuff or even giving you game modes that was supposedly had came with the game after you paid all their money for. It just seems like with Mortal Kombat, it's just constant bad news to a point to I really just don't even want to rehash it. Let's just say Mortal Kombat is so bad at a state right now that they even came out and just said they're basically done even supporting the game. The rumors are out right now that they're done supporting the game, and it seems like NetherRealm Studios isn't doing anything to combat against the rumors. So it's seeming like that's where we are with Mortal Kombat, that they're basically just looking on to the next game. So hopefully this isn't RIP, but it's seeming like we might as well say RIP. And that's really all I'm going to give for MK1, because I feel so bad for that game and the MK players. And definitely they're basically saying MK11 was better and they want to go back to that and all that other stuff. So it's unfortunate. Then even lately you have Dragon Ball FighterZ now. Dragon Ball FighterZ, when this last patch came out, everybody was waiting for rollback. It took so long for them to finally get that rollback update. And then when it finally came out, the game was broken. The game was like just messed up, glitches everywhere. I mean, it was to a point to where it was just almost like cartoony, the stuff that was going on. And so much so to a point now that everybody basically was just saying the game was basically dead. Like that was it. It was over. we might as well either be looking for another Dragon Ball Fighters or everybody just go to Dragon Ball Sparking. But the scene has come out now and basically dropped a mod that basically takes you back to the 3.5 update to where you can play an older version of Dragon Ball Fighters, and everybody's excited about that. So even with Dragon Ball Fighters, everybody is excited to go back to an older version or a modded version of the game where they're not happy with the current state of the game right now. So as you see with all these different games that we've gone through, all of them are kind of at a state to where it's just either it's very, very polarizing at the moment or it's just basically negative. And so we look forward into the future of fighting games that's going to come out and basically change the trajectory of what's going on in the scene. And we can talk about some of those right now. Now, Fatal Fury City of the Wolves is supposed to come out, which everybody's excited for. There's a lot of hype behind this. It's a little bit quiet right now, but you know, we're in the holiday season. People are taking breaks, kind of, you know how social media works, out of sight, out of mind. But it seems like everybody, from what they've seen so far from the game, is pretty excited about it now. In an era where stuff seems like it's like offensive, oppressive, Fatal Fury City of the Wolves seems like it has a good balance of both, you know, offensive options, defensive options, with things like just defense and things like that. And with this new design and how it looks, a lot of people are looking at this game, one, saying it's beautiful, two, the systems and the combats and the meta is looking pretty cool. So we're hyped to get our hands on this game. Now, we know King of Fighters 15, it held on strong for a while, but it was still like one of those games that was kind of like decent in the FGC, but more so one of the quieter ones. But with Fatal Fury City of the Wolves, it looking like it might come out with an impact that it actually might do very, very well in the FGC, better than KOF 15. And when that comes out pretty soon, it's even going to be at next year's Evo France. Hopefully people get their hands on it and they really enjoy it, and that brings another 2D game into the scene that people will enjoy. Now going to the 3D, we know Virtua Fighter 6 has basically been announced, and it's a great thing because we know the 3D space for a long time has basically been nothing but dominated by Tekken. Tekken has held the reins for a long time, and it basically lived or died with Tekken. But with Tekken 8 in a position right now where people are just super polarized over that game, it's great to have Virtua Fighter 6 come out and add some variety into the scene. But the great thing about it is Virtua Fighter 6 isn't coming out basically in a state to where it's gonna be like all the other games. They're basically coming out and just saying, we're not doing no combat mechanics, no type of gauges or anything like that. We're sticking to raw, stoic, what y'all call boring combat. So they're sticking to their roots, and they're basically just saying everything around it as far as story mode, environments, character relations, everything around the combat, they're basically going to overhaul and make anew to make it seem like a more appealing game with the combat that people call boring. So it's great that they're sticking to their roots and they're not trying to be like everybody else, because even me for a long time said they need a combat mechanic, they need an install, but they came up with some news that makes it exciting to see what Virtua Fighter is going to do, because they're not gonna be like everybody else, which is fantastic. And then last but not least, 2SKO. Now, since 2SKO been announced back when it was Project L and people knew that Riot was going to be behind it, basically everybody saw it as it was going to be like a savior to the FGC. Everybody was waiting for that to come out, and they thought it was going to bring some huge money into the scene. And I even made a video basically saying, not agreeing with all that other stuff that they said, but basically saying that the tag fighting scene basically needs it, because we're not expecting no Tekken Tag 3. Dragon Ball FighterZ is basically dead in the water. And then the long way to Marvel vs. Capcom 4 seems to be hinted at, but there's no clarification or any verification that we're going to get that anytime soon. So 2SKO can basically put that on his back to save the tag fighting scene. But at the same time, I'm going to be honest, the way I feel about it, when those alphas and those play tests and things were out, it didn't seem like 2SKO made a big enough bang in the FGC for what people are expecting it to be. It didn't feel like it was going to be a savior. It didn't feel like people talked about it so much like, oh my goodness, this is the best thing since sliced bread. It just didn't feel like that. Honestly, it felt like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and Beyond had a bigger hit in the scene and it's more talked about than 2XKO has. It feels like, honestly, the way people hype up 2XKO as this savior and what they want it for to be and save the scene, and the cannons are gonna come and just do this amazing thing, I just don't feel like it's going to be like that. Now, am I saying I think it's going to be a trash game? Of course not. I feel like they cater too much and listen too much to the scene for it to fail. But at the same time, do I think it's going to be like this big savior that's going to come in and make everything all fantastic in the FGC? No, I do not. So we'll see how it's gonna go, but I'm kind of reserved with it. I'm gonna hold my chips and not push everything to the table. I'm gonna be kind of frugal with my opinion or my hopes when it comes to 2SKO. But I still, once again, think it's going to be a fantastic game. Now, with all that being said, it gets to a point. What can we overall say about what's going on in the FGC? I feel like, one, all games are going to go through times, I feel like, where people don't really like the state of the game or they wish a lot of stuff would change. But the thing that is making this a lot more difficult is, one, the state of the games that we have right now and what they're trying to achieve. We're basically at a point where developers are basically coming out and just being honest with you and saying, we're trying to make games that everybody and their mama want to buy. We're trying to make games that everybody wants to play, that anybody can get into it. You even have Virtua Fighter 6. Their producer actually came out and said, we're trying to make Virtua Fighter 6 a game to where it's not too hard for people to learn the fundamentals of fighting games. We're trying to make that not hard at all. Now, when you hear stuff like that, like you're trying to take away the difficulty of learning the fundamentals of fighting games, what does that mean? It's not like you're trying to babyfy everybody. And it seems like that's where a lot of stuff is going, whether it's Tekken 8, whether it's Street Fighter 6. They're making these games to where it's like all your options are basically offensive, and being defensive, you're not rewarded for that. You're basically punished for it. So in this new era that we're in, that they're trying to bring fighting games into, it's going to be polarizing in the scene. It's not surprising that people are just like, I'm tired of this. I don't want this. I want to go back to the old ways of doing things. But if these games sell, if Tekken 8 sells well, if Street Fighter 6 sells well, we are going to continue to get more of this, because at the end of the day, people can say, I don't like. What's their business? At the end of the day, if they make money, they're going to keep doing what it is that they want to do. And then two, I mean, the FGC, we know, is just kind of a place to where people are more so skewing a lot of times to, well, let me say this, voices that seem negative seem to be amplified more in the scene than positive voices in the scene. And we know that social media, I mean, they push that. That's what people, you know, seem to cater to more of the hot takes, the big opinions, the contrary opinions. It seems like the negative voices are amplified more than the positive voices. It's just the nature of the scene, but it's just that it so happened, like what we talked about with one, it seems so much more because there are valid points of what's wrong with these fighting games and what people are upset about. So I think it's kind of a mix of like, this is just the scene always being the scene. You know, there's always going to be people with negative opinions of a game, stuff they don't like, people talking about stuff that they can't stand and that they won't change. But at the same time, with fighting games going through this revolution of how they're changing, it's understandable at the same time that people are saying this stuff and why it seems so loud. So I think the only remedy for this is just to continue forward and see where the state of fighting games actually goes. Stick with it. Let's keep moving forward. I mean, you got games like Fatal Fury, supposedly Virtua Fighter 6. Some stuff they did say in the interviews kind of got me iffy. 2XKO and all this other stuff. It's games that's coming out that seem like they could have some hope for the future, but it's just at the state we're in now, we're kind of just going to have to fight through it until we get more games coming in, or the games that we have right now can make some adjustments that make the scene more happy at the same time with what they could possibly do with the games. So that's my spiel. What do y'all think about fighting games going into 2025? Everything we've discussed, let me know. It's your boy Rex on Max. Peace out.